it fast. Right here on the Anycast. Make it strong, make it last. Right here on the Anycast.
All right, I'm here today with Chris Penn. Chris, how are you, sir?
I am well. How about yourself?
I am also well. Give everybody a 2-minute. Who are you? How did you get here? And then we can get into the good stuff.
My name is Christopher Penn. I'm the co-founder and chief data scientist of TrustInsights.ai. We are a management consulting firm. Been around since 2018. We help companies figure out what to do with their data, their analytics, and their AI. I got here via a very long, circuitous journey. My background originally was in IT, and then in the early 2000s, I worked at a financial services startup, and IT became marketing technology. I started picking up analytics as a profession in 2005 when Google bought this company called Urchin and then renamed it Google Analytics. And then in the 2010s, I moved and pivoted to working at a PR agency of all places after a stint at an email marketing company. And it was in 2012 when I first started seeing that a lot of the problems I needed to solve in analytics could not be solved with traditional math. You had to use what was, then really starting to be known as machine learning, programming languages like Python and R. So 2012, 2013, is when I first really started digging into machine learning, trying to do things like uplift modeling to say like, hey, you've got all this other stuff going on, emails going out and paper, and print ads and bus wraps and stuff. And all of that has an influence on your marketing. So how do you know if something worked when you have all this other noise? And so machine learning techniques can figure that out. And then in 2021, I started looking, I saw the first usable example of a transformers model from a company called Eleuthera AI. They released a model called GPT-J6B, a 6 billion parameter model that could generate coherent text. It wasn't intelligent, and it could only do like 500 words at a time, and it was pretty bad. But there was that point where I'm like, this generative AI stuff, which by the way had been around for 4 years at that point, but all in labs because it was invented in 2017. But it was in 2021 when I went, this is going to be a thing. If this tool can write, that's going to be a thing. And then, of course, November 2022 rolls around. OpenAI releases GPT 3.5, their flagship model at the time, and the web utility called ChatGPT. And then suddenly, everyone in the world is an AI expert. and that's how, and here we are today, right?
Where are we in AI? Like if we're plotting vertical lines on a timeline.
So the technologies in artificial intelligence as a field overall have existed for 70 years. The technologies for generative AI have existed for about 7 years. And we are now at a point where we have enough compute power and enough widespread distribution, particularly of models that are open and available to everyone, that if I had to put it in layman's terms, I'd say we're probably at the bottom of either the bottom of the first or top of the second inning when it comes to the use of AI, particularly generative AI, and how people are using these tools. We are still overall dramatically underusing the power of these tools, and research in the field is still enormously underway to figure out what these things are capable of. We are still in the early days of everything. We are still figuring out how they work. We're still figuring out how to get them to do what we want them to do. And so it's difficult to forecast where this is going to go, except that we know it's not going to go away. And the reason I say that, particularly for the mainstream stuff, is that there are obviously some very big tech companies, Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, that manufacture models that you can use in a web interface. And it is entirely possible that in a year and a half, maybe OpenAI runs out of money, right? And they just close up shop. The models themselves, there are state-of-the-art models that are being given away in their entirety by companies like Meta. Meta has a model called Llama 3.1. There's a version of that is on par with what ChatGPT can do. Meta's giving this away to the world. Take it. You run it on your own hardware, your own in your own infrastructure. Meta has nothing to do with it after that. That means that generative AI capabilities and tools are now permanently a part of how we do things. Even if the big tech companies and the big brands went away, the technology is not going anywhere.
I'm trying to figure out if AI is different or if this is just normal part of the cycle. But like, it's not lost on me that this person who only has a job because we had cars and electricity and the telegraph and fiber optics and microchips and mobile phones, all these other things that were going to put humans out of jobs, is worried about losing their job because there's a new technology coming. Like, is that not just the cycle of every time there's a new tool, something happens where, like, literally everybody whose job could be replaced is a job that in 1979 people would say, oh my God, this person's unemployable because the microchip's going to do their job for them now. Like, how is AI different than the microchip is fundamentally my question as it comes to that fear of displacement. Or is it not different and it's just we're in the bottom of the first or the top of the second, and that's what happens when you're at the bottom of the first or the top of the second?
This is not new. I'll give you a really good example. One I use in my keynote addresses when I give this talk. One human being, you or me, well, probably not me because I'm terrible at it, can harvest a bushel of corn in about 10 hours, right? It would take me 20. That same one human can drive a John Deere X9 1100 industrial combine and harvest 23,000 bushels in the same 10 hours. And so what happens? Farming gets way more efficient. Agriculture used to be 70% of our economy. It is now, in terms of the number of humans working in it, less than 1%. A lot of the other humans went first into manufacturing and then into services. Or if you look at the history of labor of the last 200 years, we're not producing less food, right? We are producing more food than ever, but we have mechanization that automates so much of it. What you're seeing now is the same thing happening in knowledge work, where people who thought their jobs were insulated from the way machines can make you more efficient are suddenly realizing, yeah, that instead of needing 1,000 writers on staff, you can have one plus industrial machinery to create the same level of output. There are a lot of writers who will say correctly that the content produced by machines is not super high quality. It's not Pulitzer Prize winning. It's not, and they're correct. However, if you look at things like most corporate marketing copy, it ain't Pulitzer Prize winning either. It's one step above slop. And as a result, machines can do that work and will do that work because it's not very good to begin with. You're seeing a sector now react to mechanization in the same way but what's different about it now as opposed to in agriculture is the change happened over generations. It happened over 150 years. So you farmed one way, your kids farmed another way, and if it stayed within the family, your grandkids farmed a totally different way. No one lost their jobs because it was generations happening. Maybe your great-grandkids didn't even go into farming, right? Maybe they went to work in the factories, whatever. AI is happening on a ridiculously compressed time scale where suddenly you who was in your 30s or your 20s, doing a craft, now in your late 20s, you're like, holy crap, by the time I'm 35, I might not have work because the mechanization is happening so fast. It's not happening generationally. It is just happening really, really fast. So there's a much greater chance of a large-scale economic dislocation because of the speed at which it's happening, as opposed to it being much more gradual. Humans are bad at rapid change. Humans are very good at gradual change. That's one of the reasons why, for example, climate change is such a problem, because it was gradual and suddenly it's not. And we're all like, what happened? And they're like, well, this thing that's been happening for the last 100 years, is suddenly you're having multiplicative impacts, and all the different models that were forecasting what was likely to happen were additive models. And as a result, you're seeing this multiplicative effect, like, oh, things are happening way faster than we thought. It's that the old, it happens very slowly and then all at once. And that's kind of what's happening now. Thank you for having me on the show. And if you'd like to find me, you can find me at TrustInsights.ai.
Awesome. Christopher, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Have a great day.
You too.
This is different, another round, so much more to talk about. Gonna aim to satisfy with help from CacheFly. Get to it fast. Right here on the Anycast. Make it strong, make it last. Right here on the Anycast. The Anycast podcast, brought to you by CacheFly.